Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for this IELTS General Reading Preparation video. Today, we're going to focus on the lovely matching information question type for the General Reading exam. A lot of students prefer this matching information question type to the matching headings question type, for example. But there are still some tips and tricks that we'll need to follow and a strategy that we'll have to examine. So in this video, I'm going to take you through the main aspects of this question type. We'll look at strategy, and then we'll go through a step-by-step example together. Let's get started. Now let's just talk a little bit about this question type. First off, it's basically asking you to understand information, matching information. This information can come in the form of details, examples, reasons, descriptions, comparisons, summaries, or explanations. And that may seem like a lot, but it's very clear-cut when you see it with a reading passage. So in the general exam, for example, it could maybe ask you reasons why a certain employee behavior would be grounds for dismissal. Or it may ask you to call upon a description of a potential job. The opportunities are endless, but just be aware that these are the types of information that you'll usually have to understand. Secondly, the answers usually come in a phrase or a sentence. And for that reason, we will use the scanning technique. We'll have to find our keywords in these phrases and sentences. Perhaps the worst part of this question type is the fact that the answers come in a random order. So you can't really follow an order here. You'll have to read your passage and pay attention to your keywords using the scanning technique. Now here's a guide that we will follow in our step-by-step example, and I would encourage you to do the same when you practice this question type. First off, you're going to read the information that is given to you. You never want to read the passage first. You want to read the information and your questions. Then you want to comprehend and highlight. Now, a great way to comprehend the information is to underline the keywords, which is something we'll do in our step-by-step example. And highlighting these keywords will also allow us to think of potential synonyms, because the answers will most likely not appear in the same wording and also definitely not the same order as the questions. So while this is somewhat of an optional step, I'll take you through how to best think of potential synonyms for your keywords. I'll take you through some examples on how to find good synonyms for your keywords, which will help you in the long run and later when you have to scan your passage. So you'll be scanning the passage for your keywords and those synonyms in order to answer the questions. So for the most part, we are understanding keywords, thinking of synonyms, scanning the passage, so reading and looking out for those keywords, and then answering our questions. As you know, the 3 sections in the general reading exam differ in terms of their content. Today's example is going to be in section 1. So that means it is the social survival part of the test. And this features topics that are known as everyday topics. So think of these as things you would need to survive in an English-speaking country. Things can range from adverts, so advertisements you would perhaps see in a newspaper, basic information, maybe directories that you would find in a phone book or in a magazine, or perhaps some sort of catalog. In general, these are social situations and everyday topics. Okay, so with our context in, let's go ahead and start looking at our example. Now we see our steps on the left-hand side and our information on the right-hand side. First, we're going to do our preparation work, which is going to focus on steps 1 and 2 here. Let's get started. Now, I would encourage you to combine steps 1 and 2. The more practice you have and the more confident you feel. In this video, we're going to combine those steps just to save on time, and this way you can get a glimpse on how to best manage your time when practicing and during the exam. So basically, we're going to read the information, comprehend, and highlight by underlining our key words. So let's do that first, and then afterwards, we're going to really comprehend and understand what is written here. So just briefly, we have 5 advertisements, which we will see on the next screen. And the advertisements will include information on these 8 points. So we've got 8 points and 5 advertisements, and so it should not come as a surprise that we will use various letters more than once because we have more options than advertisements. And we'll have to write the correct letter, A through E, in our boxes here. So now looking at this information, I'm going to read number 1 and think of key words. So I see number 1, up-to-date teaching system. I would say up-to-date and teaching because teaching describes the type of system. I don't have to underline system. Number 2, that the institution has been established for a significant time. Here I would say institution, established, and significant. Number 3, examination classes. This is pretty much a key word in itself. So we're lucky that we have a short piece of information here. Number 4, that arrangements can be made for activities outside class. I would say here arrangements and activities outside class. This is important, the fact that it's outside of class. Number 5, the availability of courses for school students. Number 6, language teaching for special purposes. This is unique. I would definitely highlight special here. Number 7, a wide variety of language choices. And number 8, very similar to number 3, it is short, evening classes. Okay, so these keywords make these pieces of information unique. They give these pieces of information their meaning. Now, we should not just stop there because we have to make sure that we've truly understood the information, because a common trick for this question type is that the information we'll be looking for will most likely appear differently in the text, okay? So it's very rare that these exact keywords will be written in the passage itself. So we really have to think of ways that these keywords can be written differently. You might be thinking, if they're not included in the advertisements or in the passage, why do we have to underline them? And that's a good question, but you need somewhere to start from. So you can't think of synonyms unless you know your keywords. So if you completely skip this step, you're basically reading blindly in the passage, and that will actually take up a lot more time, probably more time than you think. So I would definitely stick to this strategy. A great way to really dissect and comprehend this information would be to paraphrase, or we could say, think of synonyms. So when you practice, and also during the test day, you should briefly write out some synonyms in the margins or perhaps below, just to call your attention to the different ways that these things can be said. Remember, it might seem time-consuming, but this will actually help you in the long run, and it would actually be wonderful if you were able to practice your vocabulary and your synonyms before test day. So I always suggest that that is something you can do to grow your vocabulary. We talk all about this in our general overview video, so feel free to check that out for more tips and tricks for the exam. All right, so here on the right-hand side, I'm going to show you some highlights and some potential synonyms, and then we'll talk about them together. So I'm just going to clear our screen because we'll be able to see these synonyms in just a minute. And here we are. So we have our keywords underlined and some synonyms. So let's go over this quickly just so that you completely understand why these synonyms were chosen. So up-to-date teaching. Some synonyms could be latest systems or methods, or perhaps the most recent. These are all different ways to say up-to-date. Another way to say institution would be school or center. Established for a significant time, we would call upon experience, or there might be a large number here. So you could say 50 years. And this is another way to call upon a significant amount of time. Examination classes can be said in different ways as well. We have testing or test preparation. For arrangements, we could also say plans. Activities, we could say happenings, or perhaps studies. The availability of courses, another way to say that in a much simpler way is schedule. So be on the lookout for that. Language teaching, instead of teaching, you might see instruction. And special purposes is for a specific reason. Okay, I've just cleared our screen and scrolled down a bit so we can focus on numbers 7 and 8. For variety, I have large selection as a synonym. This is a great way to say variety. And then evening classes, there are actually two synonyms that I could think of. So instead of evening, I have night, and instead of classes, I have sessions. So just think about these synonyms because it is likely that the IELTS exam will include these synonyms rather than these exact words. Okay, let's go to the next step. Okay, great job with preparation. Now it is time to scan the passage. We're here at step 3. And finally, we see the passage on the right-hand side. So our 5 advertisements are A, B, C, D, and E. So we'll basically just have to go back and forth scanning because remember, this will not be in order. So we're going to scan for the information and underline where we think our answers will be. And once we found that, we're going to answer our questions, okay? So some things might make immediate sense after we scan the text. Some questions might take more time. So just be aware that a common trick in this question is to reuse keywords in order to fool test takers. So what does this mean? This means that the same keywords used in question 2, perhaps, might be used in the incorrect advertisement. And that just makes this question type a bit more difficult. So we have 2 difficulties here. The fact that these answers come out of order and the fact that a couple of these keywords might be reused. But don't worry, we will be able to confront this together and we're going to maximize our time, maximize our strategy, and get started. Okay, so I've just re-underlined our keywords just so that we have them on hand. And basically, I'm just going to scan. Now, I'm going to start with number 1, but if I see something that pops out at me, I can make a note or I can come back to it later. I would just suggest starting with the first one for simplicity's sake. So remember, I have up-to-date teaching. A synonym that I thought about was latest systems or latest methods or something most recent. So let's be on the lookout for that. I'll just go ahead here and right away, actually, I see a keyword here. It says latest methods. So you see that. Now it says learn a new language in 10 to 20 weeks, latest methods, and that's very similar to up-to-date teaching. Now I'm going to have a note to say that B could be the correct answer, but I just want to briefly scan and make sure that nothing else pops out at me. Here I see intensive courses are available and nothing is really sticking out to me for latest methods. This gives me some times. So I would go ahead and put B. Of course, if something else jumps out at me as I am answering the rest of the questions, I could always come back to this. But for now, I think up-to-date teaching is a synonym for latest methods like we talked about earlier, and I would be confident in that answer. Okay, so here for number 2, we have institution established for a significant amount of time. If you remember the synonyms, we had something like school, center, experience. We might also see a couple of years or a number. And so I'm going to scroll down here because I don't really see anything about experience, but this all gives some activities which might be useful for another question down the line. Here we're talking about summer. Again, these are just details. This is more information. Aha. And finally, I see a number. So we see here, this center has more than 24 years experience in providing quality language programs for overseas students. And this is proof that synonyms really help you in this question type. Now, the fact that this is 24 years experience, quality language, this is very clear to me. I would go ahead and confidently put E for number 2. Okay, so far we've got 2 of them just by scanning. Let's go ahead and look at 3. We have examination classes. This was the short question, so hopefully it's easier. For the synonym, we thought testing or test preparation. So I'm just going to continue scanning. Let's do it backwards this time. I'll start with E. And actually, I don't have to go anywhere because I see that test preparation is right here. So test preparation, possibility of further academic studies. Now, test preparation is a synonym for examination classes, test examination, and you're taking classes to prepare for the examination. In this case, I would also say this is a confident, strong answer. I would go ahead and put E here as well because this advertisement contains this information. So I've got E, and I know that letters can be used more than once. There you go. Okay, number 4, moving right along. Number 4, we had keywords that arrangements can be made for activities outside of class. Our synonyms were talking about plans or happenings outside of your studies. So again, let's just kind of go backwards here. This is talking about test preparation. This gives me dates. Here we're looking at activities. So this could actually help because activities outside of class, I'm looking at things like the beaches and a multicultural society and a sport. These are all examples of activities. And remember in the first slide we looked at, this question type will ask you to look at descriptions, to look at examples. And this right here, I would say, is an example of the activities that are provided outside of class. So I would pay attention here. And it's these keywords, these descriptions that will really answer this question for us. We have every sport imaginable. We have optional programs, which are right down here. We have classes. These are activities that can be made outside of class. And it even says here, we plan the program to suit your needs. It's perfect. This is a clear description of the information in number 4. So I would go ahead and put C. And notice how this was not the easiest thing. We had to kind of think critically and connect the fact that these are examples of activities. Okay, now our next question is number 5, moving right along. Our keywords were availability, courses, and students. And if you remember, our synonyms for number 5 were schedule. So if you remember, the schedule is another way to say availability of courses. So let's just go ahead and continue. I think I remember, however, this information in D, I want to say because school students are not adults. So it's actually quite interesting here. We see high school crash course. So it's years 8 to 12. These are examples, or we can also say a description of school students. So yes, D has the availability for courses for school students. And I don't remember this in any other advertisement. We can look, but I'm quite confident that this number 5 would be D. Again, it's not that clear cut, but we are very knowledgeable of our descriptions and our examples here. Okay, number 6, we see language teaching for special purposes. And if you remember the synonyms, we had instruction for language teaching and specific or unique for special. And I'm going to continue and just scan for our keywords. Let's just continue on here. This was all about activities. We haven't seen B or A yet. So I see here there are specific reasons. So I see full and part-time courses for business, hospitality, or travel. So This is back with our latest methods from number 1. Now, these specific examples, business, hospitality, or travel, these are special purposes because you would need this for this line of work or perhaps for hobbies. So this advertisement, B, contains information regarding language teaching for special purposes. And I would go ahead and write B. Okay, so just to assess where we are right now, we have B for 2 answers, E for 2 answers, completely normal because we had to use letters more than once. We haven't seen A, so that might be interesting to look at as well. But let's not waste any time. Let's go directly to number 7. A wide variety of language choices. And our synonyms for this were large selection, okay? So we're looking for something that has a wide variety, a large selection. And if I look at A, look at all these examples. So we have the various types of language: Mandarin, Vietnamese, English, Spanish, all of these options here. And in fact, this is the only advertisement that I think actually has such a large variety of languages. Exactly. So this is all about French, so this would not count. I would say a wide variety of languages. These are all examples of different languages, and I think that makes it pretty clear that 7 is A. Okay, so we're on our last one. We're just going through these. Now, this is another shorter piece of information: evening classes. Now, our synonym for number 8 was night or sessions. So let's keep an eye out for that. But it doesn't look like it would be here. We already covered this for latest methods. This has a lot of activities, but nothing that pops out at me for evening or night classes. Let's go down here. And now this is interesting because in D, we have times. And times are examples perhaps of evening classes. So let's pay attention to the times that are located here. We have 3 or 4 hours a day, not quite sure when that is. 9 a.m. to 1:30, that is not evening. 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., not necessarily evening there, but we see here morning or evening. I almost missed that one. So morning or evening. And this one quite clearly has our keyword of evening. Now remember, I did mention that there might be a trick where a keyword is included in an advertisement and it isn't correct. But in this case, I'm quite confident that 3 or 4 hours a day, morning or evening, would refer to 8, which would be D. All right, and there we have it. So I'm going to just clear our screen so we can take a look at all of this again. So notice how all of these advertisements in this example were similar in nature. They all pertain to language of some sort. That actually makes this quite a difficult example because the information is similar. Some examples will have completely different advertisements, although the ones that have a similar topic are considered to be more difficult. All right, so let's go ahead and check to see if we got these correct. And they are correct. So we have B, E, E, C, D, B, A, D. And if you look here on the right-hand side, we have the answer explanations, and this is basically everything that I just went through with you. We have some nice descriptions here. That just goes to show how descriptions and examples are so important for the matching information question type. We have to really comprehend the information that we have in our questions in order to do our best in this question type. So really focus on your synonyms and keep on at it. Great job. Let's go ahead and wrap up this lesson. Okay, excellent job today. We're ready to wrap up this lesson. I just want to leave you with a few do's and don'ts when approaching this question type. So for our do's, make sure that you read and comprehend the information that you see in your questions. This is really important. A great way to comprehend information is to think of synonyms. This is excellent because it prepares you for scanning the passage efficiently and effectively. And of course, you want to write your paragraph letters. Do not write any words or any numbers. you'll have to write paragraph letters for this question type. Now for your don'ts, please do not read the entire passage in a general way. Reading the entire passage will just take up time and it will not do you any favors. By reading and comprehending and scanning, you can eliminate the need to read the entire passage. Then, don't get confused over synonyms. This is also something that happens with this question type. Don't freak out if you are not familiar with a certain word. Don't worry about it. Just do your best and stick to your keywords in that case. And don't write words. This might be tricky because you'll see phrases or sentences in the passage, but please stick to writing your paragraph letters. Okay, so like I said, great job. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you will carry on in your IELTS practice, especially for the general reading. And if you need any other help or some tips and tricks or just really great strategies, feel free to visit us at www.bestmytest.com/IELTS. There you'll find everything you need for this exam. Thanks so much, and I will see you for the next lesson. Have a great day.